everybody, thank you for watching our videos and subscribing for our YouTube channel Plane, Train, Automobile and Boats. It is how we are traveled for almost 2 months. We took a train from London to Paris. It is the most convenient way to go from London to Paris. And of course, like I mentioned already in my previous videos, we take all the time hop on, hop off bus. Okay, let's see Paris.
I guess the most famous site in Paris is clearly the Eiffel Tower. The Eiffel Tower was built, I think, in the late 1800s, as I recall, for a World's Fair that was being held in Paris. It was supposed to be torn down at the end of the World's Fair, but it was so popular that it was kept up by public demand and remains up to this day. You can go to the top, actually, to two or three different levels, one of which has a restaurant. We chose not to do that because the area around the Eiffel Tower is just absolutely mobbed by tourists. There are long lines to go up in the tower, and it did not seem worth it. But you have to go there if you visit Paris, not just because it's so famous and so it's such an iconic site, but also because it's a beautiful place surrounded by plazas and parkland and fountains and so forth. And it's just a really nice place to go to get a flavor of what the sights of Paris are all about. But be prepared for the tourists because there are hordes of them. As you go down the Champs-Élysées, which is the most famous street in Paris, you see at one end of it the Arc de Triomphe, another famous site of Paris, another really iconic view of the city. And that arc was constructed to commemorate Napoleon's victories. I think his victories in Egypt, as I recall, but it was not finished before he was no longer emperor. But that was its original purpose. Now it's simply one of the sights of Paris. It's a beautiful arch. There isn't much to see except the fact that it's a beautiful arch. There isn't anything else there, but just like with the Eiffel Tower, tourists mob it. and it is in a beautiful location on a beautiful street.
And here in the distance, you can see the beautiful bridge, the most beautiful bridge in Paris, the Alexander III Bridge. The bridge was named after the Russian Tsar Alexander III as a diplomatic gesture from the French government to celebrate the Russian-French friendship that was established a few years before. Alexander's son, the Tsar Nicholas II, laid the first stone of the project in 1896.
Of course, the Cathedral of Notre Dame is yet another famous Paris landmark. It was damaged a few years ago, I forget exactly when, by a fire, heavily damaged, in fact, and it's still being reconstructed. So they've closed off the inside and they've put scaffolding and walls around the outside. So you can't really even get very close to it anymore, but you can get close enough to see the gargoyles and to see some of the structure. And if you get back far enough, you can see the overall facade and the shape of the building. And so it's still worth a visit, even though you can't go in. And it's still in an interesting neighborhood on the Isle de Paris, I think it's called, in the Seine River. And it's one of the places that you will inevitably visit if you are a tourist in Paris.
Okay, well,
I think we go that far.
Eugene's dog, the bag. He says, wait a minute.
What is this street?
Champs-Élysées.
The main street?
It's one of the very main streets of Paris, maybe the most famous street in Paris. It's the street that has Arc de Triomphe Eiffel Tower on it. This is the street down which Hitler's army marched when he captured France. It's also the street down which the Americans marched with their allies when they liberated France. It's a very famous street.
One of my favorite places in France is the Place de la Concorde, which is a gigantic plaza down near the Seine River. You can see here the Egyptian obelisk, which is part of the Place de la Concorde. The obelisk was a gift from Egypt and is actually very ancient. I forget its history, but it's easy to look up. The Place de la Concorde has at one side of it a couple of beautiful buildings, which you see here behind the obelisk. And the one on the left is the Hotel de Crillon. Just to the left of that is the American Embassy. The Hotel Crillon building actually dates back to the 1500s, and it's a very historic building. In fact, Benjamin Franklin signed the first treaty between France and the colonies when the U.S. American Revolution was going on in that building. Just in front of that building, which you see here, is where the executions with the guillotine happened. I think a couple of thousand people out of the 17,000 that were executed, a couple of thousand of them were executed right there, including Marie Antoinette and King Louis XVI as well. At that time, they had renamed this square the Place of the Revolution, the Place de la Révolution or whatever. But since then, I guess the bloody history is not to the liking of the French government, and so they've renamed it the Place de la Concorde. But it's a fascinating place because of its history with the French Revolution, because of its history with the Hotel de Crillon, the American Embassy, the Egyptian obelisk. It's just a great place to visit, and a lot of history there.
We left beautiful Paris by train, but we continued traveling in France for a while. And next time we will show you a beautiful little town Borch. Don't miss it. I hope you liked our videos. Subscribe for our channel. See you soon.